who is lazy and not interested in anything, a guy with no hobbies, goals in life and friends like all of you, but unlike you. He has IQ over 300, what allowed him to enter the elite of public school, where all the students achieve success because of some due to circumstances. He was placed in Class D, which is considered the worst in the school, where only idiots study. He goes to school on the bus when elderly woman gets on, woman and girl asking for passengers give her a seat, but no one gets up. KTA, a true supporter of equality, and not moves from the spot even when he notices that one of the girls is also sitting on hers place without problems. When they arrive at school, a guy named Suzu tells Kita that he looked at her on the bus and threatened her beat him up if he does it again, but after a series of coincidences, they find out that both study in the same class and even live next door to everyone else in the class had already managed to become friends, and they meet the first charismatic guy by name who wants to become a class monitor. Then the merry idiot appears who asks people to give up their seat to an elderly woman. To the woman, she introduces herself as Kusid, and like any sociable extrovert declares that he wants to be friends with everyone in class. Kiona thinks that he should to do something good to produce good first impression, but he's still more clumsy and my imaginary dad, and eventually sees the Russian anthem, which Andrzej other Odnoklasniki because they only support. Suddenly, America's most famous student enters the classroom, a strict teacher, and tells everyone to sit down. He himself begins to explain the rules of the school. Firstly, no one can change classes, and she will be their class teacher for the next 3 years. All students will live in the dorm and leave campus and will communicate with the outside world. Everything they need from food is forbidden. Entertainment and prostitutes are already in school, and they can spend points, which the school gives them for anything. Points will be awarded to all students the first day of every month, and this in 1 month they received a huge sum of 100 points. Each point is equal to 1 yen. This tells the surprised students that the school evaluates everyone on their merits, and already the fact that they study here makes them worthy of receiving an allowance in the amount of $1 a month. Later that same on Kyoto's day, he goes to the school store to buy moisturizer and wipes for his nightly gatherings, but meets Susan, who also buys napkins and cream. She is not happy to see such again a loser like him, but still it seems that suddenly they hear something behind them. They are fighting with the door and sees how one of their stupid Odnoklasnikovs started a fight with students from other classes. Odnoklasniki, they mock him and say that he already a pathetic loser who studies in Class D, and they don't want to fight him. The redhead is behaving like a girl and kicks a trash can, but the camera CCTV notices is. Then he decides to behave well and gets up trash because he knows that the FBI already follows him for playing Minecraft with children. In shortly after this, KTA and Suzu are left alone, and the rest are classmates start to be friends with each other. Suzu refuses to be friends with Chum Salmon, although he also a loner, and decides to go to the cafeteria. On leaving the class, he meets Shide and her girlfriends, who want to be friends with everyone in the class. She thinks that KTA very close to Suzu, with whom she is not yet made friends. While Kushide is talking, Yoda is looking at her, enchanted by her story. She asks him help her make friends with Suzu, and he agrees because her story is very interesting and he wants to know what will happen later. She teaches a history lesson, and it's like half of the students are asleep or watches videos on TikTok on his. Suzu says on phones that school is ruining. Yoda agrees with her, and her students suggests going to a cafe. He says that there are always a lot of girls there and he is shy to communicate with them. Suzu thinks that such loser, how can he not invite another girl, and agrees to go with him to feel sorry for him. They find a free one table, and Yoda tries to convince her that they look like a couple, but Susan just looks at him with a murderous gaze and shuts him up. Shortly after Kusida comes to the table and sits down next to him, but Susan immediately gets up when she sees her because she is jealous of her boyfriend. Is going to leave, saying to who what now he has someone to spend time with. Kusid stops her and asks her to become friends, but Susan refuses and tells her not to come near him again, because she doesn't want her stupidity was passed on to her. Susan leaves. Kusida is disappointed, so KTA decides walk her to the room. Along Sid's path meets a girl named Hanami from Class B, with whom she became friends in total a few days ago. Kusida starts talk about the points system and how it influences her attitude towards money, because in NFT and cryptocurrency it seems even less real. She thinks that it is best to buy only the important ones things, and KTA says that Susan did that the same thing. Kusida takes advantage of the opportunity and asks, is he really so close to her that he can walk with her. He tells the stores that it's simple coincidence and she decides not to believe him. Classes continue as usual and there is no pays attention to what they do. Students meanwhile students spend everything your money as if it were the left testicle. Alana is confident that it is all the same, will receive 100 points each month, but when they comes everything are surprised to learn that this month they didn't get any points. Soon be the class all come in and one of the students tells her that they haven't received theirs yet points. She tells him that the points are already distributed and the class was not left without attention. The reason why none of them did not receive any points isn't that they are all top-level idiots who don't deserve this. Smirks as he counts all the cases. Lack of discipline in your classroom. Man says that it is precisely because of these actions they got 0 points despite the shock which they experienced only a few minutes ago. Most of the students they forget about it as soon as they get into swimming pool in free time, while Kusaida and girls frolic in the water of Kyoto. Just is watching the developments with Susan comes up to him and sits down next to him and he notices that life must be easy for idiots who can do that. Quickly move away from serious matters. Then she talks about the system that just explained in class. According to all classes are awarded points in real time and Audi class there were 0 points. Well, this class had 940 points. When classes were just starting they had 0 points, but now they have 0 points. She applauded her stupid students because no class in history schools did not get all their points in just 1 month, and it was a new record for the fastest fall. SJ refused to provide details on how points are awarded but told them that they can earn more points if they have class will have more points than class C. They will replace them with a new class with and will rise in the leaderboard. The best way to earn points is TAS midterm exams. If they cope, they will get 100 points, but any idiot who fails exams will be immediately expelled from the KDA. Considers but if they want to earn points then everyone should change their habits and study hard. Susan agrees with him and then he starts looking at the body of you and almost falls into his trap, but there interrupts Kushida and invites Susan swim with the rest of the girls. Susan doesn't want to do anything and just walks around. Then the class leader Eski, who looks like Captain America, gathers everyone and he says that you need to study. He's better. Plans to organize a group lesson, but the evil red-haired pseudo-captain, who will most likely fail the exam, refuses. Sue, after that those who I spent all my points, and they start asking and borrow from friends. Susan asks do see free and invites him to lunch in the dining room. She treats him and waits until he will try before telling her that I need him to do something. Susan says that the court and 2 other stupid people classmates refuse to go to classes in person. She doesn't mind them expelled, but for the sake of the class he wants to help them. She doesn't want anyone to fail exam and came to school the next day with the Kyoto machine gun stunt to pay back and convince Sudo and the rest to join her group. She gives him her contacts and leaves. Oda is happy because he received it for the first time. The girl's phone number is nothing to him remains except how to ask 3 losers join the classes, but they refuse. Kyoto decides to appeal for help to Side and calls her on. She just dialed the landline, came out of the shower and asks Kyoto not for video call. Is he calling her? He ignores her flirting and says that he was chosen as a goodwill ambassador for the class. Tells her about Susan and Kusaida's plan, promises to help but also wants join the group. She gives Kit your contacts and in a few minutes persuades 3 idiots to come to Kyoto's classes or impressed and tells Susan about the success of the mission, but she calls him and says that Saida will never be to join the group. Eventually he manages to convince her, but their plan fails almost immediately. Soon as the lesson begins, Susan calls him an idiot and grabs by the throat, but not in a sexual sense. He tells her that he doesn't care about studying because he wants to become a basketball star, but Susan says he's too white for basketball. As the last loser, Kushida abandons the group and takes them with him, all the other losers. She says Susan, what if she continues to insult none of her classmates will want to be with her study? But Suzanne replies that it's not interesting to teach people who collective and equal to 0. Chris calls her cruel and states that will do everything possible to ensure that her friends do not fail the test. Suzanne asks directly why is she trying to be like everyone else. This upsets Kushi and she runs away. At night D gets bored in his room because he ran out of napkins and lotion, and he decides to buy them. By going out he hears some sounds on the street and sees Susan and her brother Manabu, who is about something. Argues he suggests that she gets stuck in washing machine so he could help her, but she refuses, saying that wants to become the next president like he. Manabu presses Suzanne against the wall and tells her to leave school immediately because he is ashamed that she is studying in class G. KDA thinks but he will see now seen from the movie Home Team No understands that brother Susan is going to hit her and grabs her at the last moment. He takes him by the hand and saves her. He says Manabu so that he would let her go, and Manabu loses his vigilance for a second, takes advantage of this and attacks him, but where does he dodge all his attacks? Surprises Manabu and he immediately retreats, admitting that he knows the secret of the CD, which is that he score only 50 points on all tests. He thinks that KDA, a genius psychopath who tries his best, pretends to be normal and tells Suzu that if she wants to move up in her career, the stairs should remain with Yodo. After this, Kyoto treats Suzuna to a drink and she thanks him for saving her and then praises his fighting skills, which she got more excited than from the floor. In a public toilet, she asks, is it true that he faked the results exams so that they look normal, but he claims that it is simple coincidence. Then he asks not did she drop out of the study group, and Susan answers, what will happen for her and their class is better if the idiots get out of here quickly. This group KDA tells her that it is possible she was transferred to Class D because she's gotten cocky and needs a reality check. She starts to think about Flick KDA about in a few months. They start midterm exams in a few days before the exam were to go to look for a pseudo. They'll bring him to the Kusaida no study group, finds him fighting with students from he's already going to another class. Intervene, then Hanami appears, popular girl from first grade BI, stops the fight. She threatens to call the police if they don't stop, and the hooligans from the first class with retreat. After this, KDA calls the dog to the study group, but he replies that he needs to prepare for basketball match. However, KD has other plans and he asks Kusadu to join. They find a third student for him, coursed from Class D, and approach it. Kyoto realized that he had swept away because bought a free lunch in the canteen, and so I offered to sell it to him last year's exam questions in exchange for points. Kyoto offered 10 points in exchange for all questions for the first year. A high school student wanted 30 points, without seeing there was no other way out. Kusaida offered a discount for cute girls and high school students agreed to 15 points later than Kyoto. I thought I would rely on last year's questions or a lie, but Kyoto said that the rules don't say anything about this. At that moment he received a message from a high school student who sent him one. It turned out from old test papers that this test was exactly the same like the one they wrote last time, weeks, and this is what Kyoto was counting on. I thought there should be something between the questions, some similarity, and now his hopes justified. He decided to distribute the work to classmates the day before the exam and asked Kushida to take all responsibility on yourself because everything they trust her and don't want to attract her to themselves attention. She did as he asked and distributed asked questions to all students. I doubted it and wanted to ask Kushida on the origin of these questions, but she didn't have the opportunity because other students gathered around her thanks to the leak of information. Everyone got much more points, and they were pleased with their results and thanked Chrissy, calling her an angel. But Suzu knew that Kyoto was behind all this and asked him what he did to Kyoto. Tells her the whole story and she feels wetter than Amazon jungle. Impressed by the teacher says with intelligence that they really were the best at this test, but then she notices that Suna failed his English exam, panics because he explains that the grade is 50% of the average score. The class that was 40 and he only had 39. Onana tells Sudo to collect failed things. A class monitors. They ask is there a way to save him this time. Simply answers that you need to follow school rules, and she leaves something understands and immediately follows Suna on smoke break. He asks, is it true that in the first day she said, what 4 points you can buy everything, and she nods in a sign. Kyoto's consent was very keen to buy from her worn sportswear. Decides by 1 mark from her for Suna to he was able to pass the state test. Says that the services are very expensive and she charges 10 points for just 1 mark. In this, at that moment Susan comes and offers split the bill with Kyoto. She says that if a student is expelled it could have mysterious negative consequences for them class and wants to prevent this. State agrees to the deal and says that the class has never been upgraded before and wishes them luck before leaving the roof. Later that day, Kyoto learns that their class now has 87 points and the first one class a 1.4 points. Despite this difference, Suzanne is not far from her dream of entering KTU. She thanks Sudo for help because he knows that he is doing it on purpose. I gave her a lower grade in English so that the average grade in the class was higher. Then he calls her cute and asks if he buys her some used clothes, but Suzanne responds by hitting him with a compass. Later in the evening they have a party at honor of the success of KD. Suzanne, Kusi, and Trinity. Stupid KDA complains At the party passes his room without him permissions, but everyone else is having fun. Kusaida asks how he managed it. Prevents pseudo-exception, and he is here. He also attributes all the merits to Susanna, says that she had a fight with the teachers and forced them to admit that the exception was one bad grade, is too cruel. She is irritated by his lies, but she doesn't care. All that remains is to believe that everyone is praising Suzanne no City. This does not like. She remains and helps to clean up after party and asks if he likes it. Suzanne, because all the girls think that they are a couple. He replies that they are just friends, but Kusaida seems to be offended by his answer and leaves. Toyota seems confused but suddenly notices that she forgot her phone and goes after her to return it and sees that she is going in the opposite direction. He goes to the side of the women's dormitory, her to the lake, where she bites and shows her true face and starts swearing at Suzanne. She states that hey, such beautiful, smart, and narcissistic girls like her, and Kita hides behind the bushes and eavesdrops as a pervert is suddenly on his phone. A notification appears and Kushida understands that she is not alone and asks who the hell is. Take it and hide behind the bushes, where it is right there. Comes out of hiding and Kushida angry comes up to him and says that if she will tell someone, she will tell everyone that he is a complete idiot who tried steal her jacket while she had it on. Nadetta Kada says that this is false accusation. Kushida grabs his hand and hugs her to himself, saying that now there are his fingerprints on her clothes, and that's enough to send him away. Behind bars, in the modern world where they rule feminists, Koda am amazed at how she is different from her usual self and understands that she is just pretending sweet and tender. He promises to keep her secret, and Kushida immediately returns to his usual mood and reminds he knows that snitches get into trouble. Before leaving the next day, Kada sees Suzu and Shida together in the elevator, and Kushida acts like between them nothing happened last night. Kada wants to get away from this psychopath and asks Suzu what she is doing with Kushi Milk and finds out that she was waiting for her in the morning at her rooms, and they went together. When they get out of the elevator and Suzu goes on his way, and Kushida complains that she is cold, and here a Hanami from their class appears. She greets and asks if they received it. Their odd Nicholas Nikki their points, but Kushida refuses to answer. Truth soon will be revealed when they come to class, because this one says to the disciples that in the school system has problems and grades will be exhibited later, which makes everyone angry because they don't have money. Later that same day, Hanami invites Ketami alone and nervously tells him that one of her classmates wants confess his love to her. She shows him that letter that Odniklasnik sent her, but she doesn't feel anything for him, and besides, she doesn't know how to refuse him. That's why she wants Yuta to pretend her boyfriend and scare away from participating in this. But here one of Hanami's classmates comes upset to see Hanami with chum salmon and understands that she is a natural who loves play with nature, and it is not interesting lesbian. She still asks are they dating, but Hanami is hesitant. Yuta realizes that the girl who came to I tried to confess to him. He says that they are just friends, and then Hanami says that confessing your feelings it's important. He asks her to try, and if everything will work out for them, he will be glad to watch their performance. After this he leaves, and after a few minutes he sees like a girl who came to confess runs away in tears. After this anemia, Katie thanks him for his help. The next day, when Yodo enters the classroom, he sees a tense situation and soon learns that 3 students from Class 1C filed a complaint against Pseudo, claiming that he attacked them without reasons. After basketball practice, Pseudo shouts that he was defending himself, but there is no evidence of this. He says that the students from Class 1C envied him because he started playing the basketball team irregularly, but nobody believes him. Kusaida asks, did anyone see what happened? And girl with pink hair sitting next to him, he looks very excited. Nobody says anything, and then this says that the official hearing on this case will take place in a week, and then the Pseudo will be punished. The whole class is against him and thinks that it would be better if he was expelled from school, otherwise they may not get points either this month. Susan asks KDU what he thinks, but he doesn't have an opinion yet. Susan thinks that if Pseudo is excluded from this in a month, they will have fewer problems, but who thinks there might be hidden one's punishment if a student from their class president, Isuk, will be suddenly expelled, turns to everyone and says that they must find evidence and witnesses to confirm the innocence of the Pseudo. Kusaida joins then and even convinces Ketu to help. Susan, however, refuses to tell her anything, and quietly Saida and 2 others come out of the KKU class. Nothing is found from the oak-headed trio, and when they are about to surrender to them, Hanami runs up. She heard a short presentation of events and learns the details from the bite. She claims that nothing knows promises to tell if he finds out something. Bite yes wants to conclude deal, but Kita feels that here something is wrong and it's probably because the smell of Hanami becomes stronger when she sees him. She says no will betray him because last time she owed him. Later Kyoto finds message to Nain on the board obligatory in which they asked to contact the class. Class leader B. Hanami asks class teacher of class to report that they have a letter from witness. Hanami reads it and finds out that we are talking about Obo who was involved in the incident with Sudo, although he was not member of the basketball club. Judging by according to the message in high school, he was a real hooligan and often fought. The head of class B thinks that if Sudo beat up a hooligan and two others boys, either he is the reincarnation of Bruce Lee or they tried to set him up. Hun wants to thank an anonymous witness sending him some points, but not knows how. Kita has a way to do it this and Hanami completely loses vigilance and shows him his smartphone. After that she leaves, but Kyoto notices that she has more than to see 5 million points and she wonders where she got so many from. He returns to his room and discovers that there are already people gathered there. Saida is a dumbass and the third thanks duplicate keys they made. They want to discuss what they have learned about witnesses. Akita thinks is it worth it, he should be like Karen and call the police for invasion. At this moment Sujan calls Idor, but seeing the shoes of other students is going to leave. Kyoto stops and asks her to at least tell what she learned about the witnesses. Susan says that Sakura is the pink-haired nerd from their class, is a witness in a case and bites. He immediately calls her but she doesn't answer. Kyodai Susan why does she think that Sakura is a witness, and she answers that only Sakura acted strangely when Bite asks everyone to stand up. Then Susan mysteriously says that even if Sakura will testify and everyone will know that Sudo acted in self-defense, it will be pointless after this leave. And when Kyodai Kusaida again comes to him, she wants to know what Susan I meant when I left, and they go to walk where Kita explains that Sudo he behaves in such a way that everyone dislikes him, so even if there won't be any evidence of his negative image, will convince the judges of his guilt. Shidi I don't like it, but Kyodai do everything if she wants to help Sudo and she swears to help him because he is her friend. She thanks Kyo for the advice and promises to talk to Sakura tomorrow alone. The next day Kusaida goes talk to her at Kyoto and Susan lurking nearby like creepy stalkers to eavesdrop on them. Sakura gets nervous when he hears the name Sudo and tries run away, but Sid's Bite grabs her hand and she falls with her beloved. She immediately checks her camera and discovers that it is no longer. She works and runs away, leaving Kusadu because he doesn't want to get involved in this. The matter says it may reveal some dark secrets that Kyoto hides from the whole world, that he knows Kusaida is an extrovert level 999 who the defense mechanism doesn't even work when she invades privacy. Another person's space. No, Sakura resisted her as if she was afraid start a relationship. The next day Sakura asked Kishida and Kyoto to go with her to the electronics store in the mall center to fix her Kyoto camera. Asks her if she really needs it so that he would accompany her, and soon he will know the reason when he sees the creepy one pervert seller in the store. Electronics. Sakura is afraid of his annex and Kita thinks that's why she needs it support of a real alpha male. The shop owner says that he will take 2 days to fix the camera and asks Sakura to leave him her address and contact details. She is afraid to report your data to this bastard, and Kyoto takes the pen from her and instead fills in his details. He says seller perverts, but when repair will be finished he can just contact with him later. Sakura thanks Kyoto and I'm sitting here because they came with her, but she's still too nervous to bite. Goes to the toilet and the atmosphere immediately becomes awkward without her presence. Sakura plucks up her courage and asks Kyoto what are the best things to do in relation to Sudo. He tells her to do whatever her heart desires and she answers that it looks like she will regret that she kept silent. Kita asks why she turned to him for advice to him and not to Kushidi, and she replies that it is because his eyes are not, they look scary. He immediately understands that she means remembering as a friend what did Kushida's eyes look like when she showed him her true side. Thinks that Sakura's instincts are not inferior according to the mind of Spider-Man's instinct because she doesn't trust Kushida completely. He decides to help her and tells her to she threw away all thoughts that she actions help other people and did what he wants. He tells her that she must testify for her own sake and she is grateful to him for this. Soon Kushida comes and tells Kyoto that she will visit him later. They return to Dorn and Kushida shows Kit the only page with fan Sakura. Although it looks a bit there differently, they understand that she is not wanted to testify in favor of the court because I wanted to keep mine the identity of the secret. Suddenly Kushida gets email from Sakura and she ready to testify. At the next day, in Suzuna's class asks Kyoto why he is all day prawn spend time with Kushi because she jealous that he pays more attention a girl with more curvaceous forms than she tells him that there is a hearing on the case Sudo will take place today after school. The hearing is taking place in the school office advice both sides are present Manabu and the student council secretary to there and this one notices that it's a strange coincidence to see him like this in a small listening Kyoto understands that because of Manabu's Susan is to Tensan cannot reach its potential. The hearing begins and the secretary reads out the statements of both parties who claim that they were summoned to extension and that they attack Suo claims that he hit 3 students, but that was self-defense. Kyoto understands that the situation is not in their favor. Susan can't seem to do anything to help none evidence of innocence of Sudo and Manabu is about to find him guilty. Seeing no other way out of Kyoto suddenly tries to wake up Susan and forces she gets up. She is embarrassed and angry at him, but he tells her that if she doesn't fight, they will lose. Susan comes out his miserable state and begins interrogate the wounded students. She did not believes their words and says that the Sudo is not could defeat all 3 of them at once without getting injuries and if they didn't want to fight then the students from wouldn't have been beaten so badly. Class C continue to claim that Sudo attacked them first and Susan finally decides to call their witness at her signal. Sakura enters the room though she is already terribly scared. She admits what I saw as students from the class, but the first teacher to attack Suzuwa's class with don't believe her and think that Sakura, he just lies to burn out his own. He accuses his classmate of Suzu. She is trying to manipulate the timid one girl to act as witness, but then Sakura states that she has evidence. She pulls out SD card with photos, which I made for my subscribers and says that she was in the annex that day. A photo shoot. In one of the photos the court is surrounded by 3 students from the class with retreats, but still does he looks like he's the boss and says that the photo doesn't prove anything. He admits that his students are also guilty and offers a compromise. Court removes on 2 weeks and his students for 1. Kyoto understands that he deal at solo level. Goodman and looks at Susan waiting for her opinion. She gets up and says that the court serious behavioral problems that he needs to decide and he should do it, think about it, but she refuses to admit it. He is guilty of this incident and not accepts agreements. Susan states that the students from Class C and are to blame for everything, claims that the court is innocent of. Both the parties turn to Manabu and try convince him that they are victims, but he says that one of them is lying. He announces that the decision will be made tomorrow at 4:00 p.m. and if by that time no one will provide more convincing, he will appoint strict evidence punishment for all parties. After this, Susan leaves because she doesn't want to lose in this mini drama. In the whole, Sakura's court apologizes to Kyoto saying that if she had interfered right away everything would have been different. At that moment Manabu and his secretary comes out and starts mock the chum salmon by saying that he looks like he came here with some kind of strategy. KTA replies that he doesn't play any of them. Chess does not turn into checkers. Manabu to Sakura and says that if she won't be able to prove what she said earlier then it will be considered a lie. She's nervous. A KTA says that she believes her and Manabu suddenly switches his attention to him and gives him a slap on the back of the head before asking can he prove that the girl tells the truth. The next day of KTA and Sora looking for evidence innocent Sudo. They go to the extension where the fight took place. They find that there are no cameras there CCTV. As Susan suddenly an idea appears and it stays to try. Akita returns to class where Sakura sits alone today. She came many comments from the stalker on her page in OnlyFans and Patreon, who claimed that he knew her real name was Scared, and then she found in her there are a lot of letters in the cabinet, in some of which were her photographs from the market. Sakura was in despair and realized that her pain problems given notices that she is tense and says that she doesn't need to testify today, though I need to relax. He says that thanks to her Sudo and their class will be in security and ask her to contact him if she ever needs it. Help. Sakura feels more confident after his words, but as soon as she is going to tell him about her problem, Kita receives a letter from Kusita. He apologizes to the investigation Sakura and promises that he will talk to her later. She smiles and says that everything is in okay, but he notices that she is somehow upset. Then KTA goes to the extension. Where did the 3 injured guys come from? Class C because they got invitation message from Kusida. KTA tells them that Saida's won't come and That's it, he called them. The guys don't want to talk to another guy and just tell him that the court was the one who provoked the fight, so he must be punished. They are about to leave, but Suzu stops them, telling them that if they leave now, then will regret this for the rest of their lives. They are not going to listen to her. And then Suzu points to the camera CCTV on the wall. What's scary, one of them says that if the camera is always here, then Suzu already has proof that they were the first to attack Pseudo and she shouldn't play with them mind games. KTA answers that even with this evidence, the court attacked them, and it's a crime. That's why they can't freely use camera recording CCTV. And he says that Suna will get a light punishment, and there are 3 of them will be expelled for lying and involvement in this. KTA school council president claims that the school checks them to see how they solve this problem, and that's why the administration hasn't told them anything yet. Says to guys give up and are afraid that they will really be excluded. They won't admit that they lied and hope that the school will treat them leniently. But their leader is not a snitch. Susan offers him way to save both classes, and KDA adds that complaints need to be withdrawn so that no one is punished. The leader calls to your boss to get instructions, but Susan snatches the phone from him and tells him to stop relying on his daddy, who takes him for him all decisions. He is going to hit her, but notices the camera and stops with another. The boys will manage to convince him not to do it, and they take back their complaints after this. Kiona goes to meet with Hanami, who bought cameras for him CCTV because I owed him glasses. He promises to return her glasses when Sakura suddenly calls him and asks to help him, but the call suddenly ends. KTA tries to call her back, but Sakura, her stalker, pins her against the wall, who turns out to be the owner of the store electronics. He declares that he is going to take her home and lock her in the basement, and Sakura understands that she is doomed, falls to the ground, and remembers how someone promised to help her if she had any problems. She rushes to the phone, but the shop owner catches her and catches her again. He presses to the ground. He is already going to do something with it, but then it appears. Ketan pesters a girl. He says the shop owner that tomorrow his face will be all over the news. And what does he look like? Like a person who ends up in prison. The guy tries to run away, but Hanami is already next to the guards who were him. They are detaining him. Despite this, keeps saying he's a fan of chicken and that he really likes her. She yells at him and says that she doesn't like him and that she never wants to breathe again. The guy breaks away with just the air and starts insulting her, while the guards, they take him away. Hanamiya tells Sakura that he was able to find because he is a pervert and follows for all the girls whose contacts he has there. She starts complaining about how she is pathetic, but thanks the chum for help and promises that now he will believe more. In the meantime, he calls to himself Roof to ask how she managed to make the guys in the class back off. She refuses to tell details and doesn't even say whose it is. There was an idea that allows her to keep her secrets, but advises her that if she really wants to get into class, then I should try to understand what CTA is man before it's too late. Suzuna asks what she means and says that according to the school, Class D is this is a place for all the losers, and among them, KTA seems the most broken and unsuccessful. On the other hand, KTA returns to his class and is confronted with Manabu, and his Manabu secretary tells him that the kids from the class took back their complaints and he thinks it was the chum. Salmon's way proved that Sakura didn't lie to anyone. Slava is needed, and he says that it was Suzu. Manabu plan thinks that Yoda is too smart enough to leave him alone and offers him a place on the student. The CTA council simply refuses, saying that he hates when someone demands from him more, and he can do. Manabu accepts his decision, but says no, leave him alone. He goes away, and that's it. Notices that Suzuno was there all this time there, and I heard everything. They go to their places together, hostels, and when they are expected on at the crossroads, Suzuna asks if it's him forced her to come up with a plan with fake KTA surveillance cameras. Say that no understands what she's talking about and leaves, but she stops him because he hasn't yet she finished and wants to know what his goal, and he answers that he just wants calmly at school and helping friends. Suzuna says that this is nonsense because he is not one of those who helps her. Words suddenly resemble Cutie from traumatic childhood memory. When he was in a strange place with other children his age, his friend suddenly fell and began to convulse, and the chum was seized cold-faced. He suddenly darker when he remembers this and says to Suzum what will help her get into class as she wants, but she shouldn't get into his past. That time in time leader class C meets 3 the injured guys who were involved in the incident with Pseudo Isin told them to set it up so that the redhead expelled from school, and he is unhappy that nothing happened to them. They will start soon summer holidays, and Susan all the time spends his time studying in his room. One day Yoda called her and she was just came out of the shower and She continued drop his calls, but he was persistent and forced her to answer. Asked if she wanted to go with him pool and although she first refused, eventually agree when he said it was for everything Class D Khan conveys to that all the guys turned into perverts and they are going to spy on girls. He knows that even if he tries them stop they will do it behind his back. That's why he wants them to fail and Susan agrees to help him. She immediately meets Yosuke and his girlfriend, who they mock her saying that they thought she died because she didn't. I left the room for a whole month. Yosuke offers Susan to sometimes walk with them, but she's not interested in being friends with anyone. She's like that and he says, it still ends up with Keto, Kushida and Sakura waiting and the rest of the shitty trio. They come running and they apologize for oversleeping, but Sakura says that they came from the outside pool. They were scared when they heard it because they were going to spy. Follow the girls into the locker room and taught Morse code about how they screwed up this time. Moment they meet Hanami and her friends from Class B who also came in pool. All everyone else is having fun playing beach volleyball and enjoying special edition with background service. The kids from class are trying to sneak in cameras in the women's locker room. They have nothing, it doesn't work out, and they decide to cancel mission, but then the class leader appears with his minions and ignores the sign. Filming is underway to save his comrade. On command from his close attention, Pseudo rushes towards the class leader. With a short notice, all the big shots of the school come there and the situation is heating up. On the other side, Class D team loses in beach game volleyball and Susan thinks it's because that Kyoto is distracted by the girls in bikini suddenly interrupts their game because that a crowd is gathering near the locker room and all the guys go to help there to a friend who is stuck inside. Kyoto receives a message that he needs to distract attention from the locker room and decides to help to the guys. He turns to Susan and persuades her to climb to the very top high point to give a speech. MLK have a dream the plan worked and she gathered everyone to listen to her speech about transition to class and giving odd Nicholas Nikki a chance to escape the locker room. Later that same day, Suzu comes to the kit and says that she found several cameras in the women's locker rooms as he told her before she took them and hid them safely so that there were no problems. He asks, did she like the pool and did she? He answers that no, because he prefers to not do Kyoto on your own. Impressed and pushes her into the pool without knowing that he doesn't need to do this or that to get her wet. When he tries help her out, she drags him in back, but Kushida thinks that they just play and the rest start splashing. Join them and they have fun at night. Suzune receives a photo from KTY and finally smiles, admitting that it was fun. A few days later, freshmen go on a cruise to luxury liner paid for by the KTA school. Goes to the theater to talk to her and she informs him that a certain person has contacted with the school and demanded his expulsion. KTA replies that he doesn't know who it was, but they can't exclude him without good reason. The reasons says that he is right and for now he studies here. The rules protect him, but if he creates problems everything it will be different. KTA says that it won't, is going to do nothing that could get him into trouble. At this he just says that his intention is for her. It doesn't mean anything and if she decides that he creates problems the school will believe her. Then she offers Katie a deal in exchange for a promise that he will try to get there to class and she will cover him and give him my all. I don't wash my clothes. He wants to finish the semester in May so refuses the deal and leaves. But this threatens that in this case he will be expelled and he will lose freedom. KTA in rage grabs her by the collar as she looks in his eyes and asks him to make a decision right now. He accepts her proposal but warns that she will regret it if will try and manipulates it. In response, just simply smiles and says that in her life is already full of regrets. Khan goes up to the roof to get some fresh air. He understands that now it won't be easy to live a simple and calm life, but this is said by a person living on luxury cruise liner. On a ship there is a first-class restaurant, theater, swimming pool and even a spa, and all the students glad that they had a chance to live like this. 1% of the world's population lives. Girls having fun in the pool and the perverted guys look at them. Dumbo is one of the trinities. Their year decides to confess to Kushi in his feelings and his friends support him. However, when he is alone with her he can only ask for permission, call her by her first name and not her last name. Kushida doesn't mind and she even calls him by name, from which he immediately underscores seeing the success of his friend the court and to damn they also want to confess their feelings of the court wants to call Suzu by name and the other guy already feels sorry for Sakura and Chum because they are going to land where even the friend zone it will seem paradise. Then they go to a restaurant and wondering if food really is a free one. The waiter comes up to them and leads them to an empty table before they manage to decide something, and one of them gets embarrassed and loudly asks the waiter take an order like an ill-mannered barbarian. One of the students from Class A is making fun of over them for their behavior and starts fight with Pseudo. Advice leader of class A Katsuragi stops his classmate and says Pseudo and his friends that they also need to learn behave if they want to earn more points. Heard Katsuragi knows that he is one of the best students in their class. Later, when he resting in his room and thinking about Seiya's proposal to him, he comes to SU, invites Ken to hang out with him friends, but it seems he has some hidden motive why he keeps silent for so long and why he is in the end he admits that he needs it help to improve relations with Suzu. He thinks to us that if they want they need to advance in class. Susan worked with everyone and was not happy with that everyone refers to it as a VPN account to access Susan. At first, then he manages to answer as he receives a call from his girlfriend and goes on Susan calls the party shortly after Kdo in a cafe because he thinks that the trip is not just a vacation and there is something behind it. Stands where he remembers that the ship heading to a boarding house on the island belonging to the school and feels that there's something can happen suddenly. The class leader comes in with Yuan and sits down next to Susan. He praises her plan, install fake cameras in the extension observations to save the courts as then Susan starts flirting with her, turns him down, but ruin becomes to he even takes photos without her being intrusive. He tells her that next time once he sorts it up himself and is going to leave, but then his girlfriend appears, Tombo and Buki. She is not happy. Ryunosuke no bodyguard Runa stops her and presses her against the railing when she tries to follow him. Yoda tries to help her up, but Ibuki violently pushes his hands away and Suzu does not think that the class is about to fall apart. Later that night, Sakura calls Chum to date because she wants to have sex with him. When he suddenly appears behind her, she forgets what she wanted say. Fortunately, CTA claims that not heard her words and Sakura comes up with the excuse that she just needed his help to get along better with classmates. KTA says it's not a problem and she takes it, thanking him for his help, but here Kushida appears. Sakura flinches and lets go of Kai's hands before running away, leaving them alone. Kushida points to beautiful starry sky and Kyotani. That night, when he saw her dark side, he is about to go to his room, but Kushida suddenly becomes serious again and asks him to stop. She presses herself to his shirt and hugs him from behind, asking if he is afraid of her. Tio nods and Kushida suddenly becomes normal and apologizes for her outburst. She wants invite him to your room, but seeing his impassive face, so decides just leave. The next morning, when Katie lying in bed, he hears how the captain the ship calls all students to the deck so they could admire the scenery. As they approach the island, he goes out on deck and sees that everything look at the tropical island to which they come soon. After that, all students change into sports clothes form and line up in these ranks, tells them that they will receive it soon. Instructions on what will happen. No one is allowed to take anything from the island with their personal belongings and everyone will have bracelet with GPS navigator, which will serve as a pass. Explains that if someone will take off the bracelet while they are on punishment awaits him on the island, and Susan notices that the school is very serious about this. Applies shortly after that the teacher starts to explain the details, announces that this is the beginning of their first special test in which they must survive on a desert island within a week. Shortly thereafter, students are dropped off on the island. They are given to things with a minimal set of things: large tents, matchboxes, backpacks and sunscreen cream, while Yusu calmly a list of things that the others gave them. Students are nervous because they haven't watched a single episode of Survive Any at the cost of, and they don't know how to survive in the wild. They were also given 300 special points with which they can buy food, water and barbecue tools. Back the ranks want to score more points and have fun, but you don't want to because all the remaining points will be added to their total scores, and he reads the rest of the instructions and finds out that they will lose points for illness or serious injury, pollution, environment, absence at roll call, and crimes against other students or classes. There are also ways to get more points if found on the island. Special places: some girls want spend your points to do your stay on the island more comfortable, but other students think that you need to accumulate points because it will increase their chances of success in school. Essie's girlfriend demands that the girls at least would buy a decent toilet, but offend Andrew Tate says they don't need to special treatment just because they girls. Other boys join in and they start arguing with the girls, and KTA and Suzu understand that this is a test. It will be harder than they thought. After this, everyone goes into the forest to look for food. A suitable place for the Suzu camp looks worried and says Katie that he doesn't like being outdoors and among people, and here it is combined soon. Everyone takes a break, and everything works out. Convince a Tatefen that girls need separate toilet to stay healthy, and this will only increase them results. After that, he asks who wants to go with him to look for a suitable one place for the students count, including Ketu and Sokola, are called by volunteers and are divided into teams of 3. Kyoto man unites with Sokola and Nji. Japanese version Johnny Bravo, who considers himself the embodiment of elegance. Kiona notices that Nji has excellent physical data and absolute self-confidence, and he jumps from the tree on the tree like a monkey. Sakuri hard for to catch up with him, and Kyoto asks him a little slow down or else they lost that in such a forest. They definitely don't. He's crazy, so he keeps jumping branch to branch. In the end, he leaves Kyoto and Sokola behind, and they stumble upon a cave. Sokola thinks that this could be one of the special places where our bonus points store, and Kyoto, he agrees. He remembers that this told them about special places and bonus points. Special places, this is essentially checkpoints or kites, and only the designated class leader may receive access to them. Is possible using special cards keys for every 8 hours during which they hold bonus points. They get 1 bonus point, and the leader must pick them up again after 8 hours. Also, at the end, special exam for each class will be given the opportunity to find leader of another class. If they guess correct, they will get 50 points for each correct answer, but for each wrong answer they will lose 50 points, and bonus points received for special seats will be cancelled. Kyoto knows but this test is like playing hide and seek with Russian roulette, and they can find out about leaders of other classes exploring special places. Sokola was already about to go to cave, but the iconostasis suspected something, and immediately he dragged her into the bushes of Katsuragi from the classroom and comes out of the cave with a key card in his arms. Within there is another student who thinks they are lucky to get this place so early, but Katsuragi immediately put it on his eye as soon as he saw him. Kyopoli tells his friend about the ship, that it is his duty so leader control everyone in the class, but asks him be careful if if things go wrong. He suddenly notices something not good and heading towards the trees. However, the Kyonai Sokola barely make it in time hide, and after leaving Taragi's father, Kyuna finally removes her hand from Sakura's face, which he had been holding all this time. Feels relieved, but Sokola seems to a new fetish has appeared. They are examining cave and return to the classroom. Over time, Tadam finds a suitable location for the camp by the river with clean water and many fish. This place also is special, and only their leader class can Yosu manage it. Announces a meeting, and they decide that it is the place will be their base, and there will also be occupy a special place to receive 1 point every 8 hours. Other students suggest ways to hide the leader's identity, camouflage this place, but here the question arises, who will be them leader before anyone else has time to give their names? Kushida gathers everyone. She says that the leader should be someone who doesn't stand out too much and responsible. She proposes a candidate, Susan, and Yos immediately agrees. Susan hesitates, but when Suma's core offers she should become a leader, she doesn't want to. She quickly agrees. After that, occupies a special place, and the rest they don't start setting up camp. Are you sure you can drink water from the Nono River? One of them who watch different shows of survival on the net, Gyodiri, believes that it's completely safe because water looks clean. Misuke asks Get to get some firewood, and he wants to take it with him. Suzu, well, she's not in the mood to study physical work. Kan goes into his tent, so he takes Sokola with him. And the second guy wants confess I feelings to Sokola and thinks he has a chance, but she ignores him like my girlfriend ignores me. When they come back and having gathered the camp for firewood, they find it wounded by a tree, and Buki from the class with her. My whole face is covered in bruises and my hands are dirty. To the second guy instinctively rushes at her to help. No Yoda for a moment stops him and then lets him go, making sure there is no trap here. They ask Ibuki if she needs help, and they offer to take her to her class. Reminds them that she is their enemy because she is from class with no Sokola and second. The guy insists in the camp. The first guy boasts of his hiking experience and makes a fire. Akushi and a few girls find different fruits that they found in the forest while they were thinking about edible fruits. The dumb guy tells them about all the fruits that you can eat and about those that can lead to death from diarrhea. His rating in the class suddenly rises, and having received a little attention, he apologizes to the girls for the fact that I was previously against their demand for providing a separate toilet. KDA surprised that the idiot turned out to be better than he thought. After that, Yeski says that After the event they must try to save at least 120 special points, and tells his plan how spend money only on food to remain as efficient as possible is their lower limit, and they think that by getting their own food, they will be able to save even more points. After this, Yoto approaches Ibuki, who is sitting quietly in corner, and asks her to wait a little while the council will decide her fate. She thinks that he will kick you out, but KTA says that they have a lot people who want to help her. Kushida Ibuki brings fruits, and Ta gets upset because everything is here suddenly more trusting than a 4-year-old child. They hear like Sudo Kamaji shouts his name and runs to class to find out what happened. They will find out that he pretended to be sick and sailed away islands to recover on a boat. According to the rules for this, their class will receive a penalty of 30 points, despite the fact that this narcissist pretended to be sick. The bastard is in great shape and swam to boats admiring the beauty of the moon. On the day of their survival test, Yoda looks at the fish and remembers his past in the mysterious place where he lived when the boys come back from fishing girls with picked fruits. He discreetly checks which of them is which. Then Yasuka takes over responsibility and tells the students light a fire and share food. KTA thinks that he is indeed the leader of Class D, seeing how easily he leads everyone. She says that it is unusual for him to go into the forest on his own for reconnaissance, and the CTA responds that there's nothing else to do to pass the time. Suzanne says to patrol territorial boundaries are a waste of time, strength, and he tells her that she is right. However, he is a little worried about meeting class leader Ruin, who is clearly aimed at Susan. Soon they get there to the camp. Class spy and Hanami shows the surrounding area is all happily doing its thing duties, and Susan is impressed by the unity and discipline. She laughs, confirm that Class D and Class B allies, and as soon as the Hanami is going to, a boy comes up to them and asks for directions. Susan notices that he a little bit removed from everyone, and Hanami says that he is from Class C, apparently kicked out of the camp. Then they go to the class camp, and Suzanne does not dare come closer, but the chum salmon is not going to retreat just because they are from class, and goes to their cave. Suzanne reluctantly follows him, but as soon as they approach the entrance to the cave, and she takes the initiative into his own hands and speaks the guard that they could come in. She says there is nothing illegal in order to see what is located inside their base, but then comes out of the cave Katsuragi with a hunting bow. He says Susan what she can watch. Note, what if she does something funny, then the consequences will be serious. Suddenly class students surround Ketu and Suzanne holding sticks in their hands in case they will try to penetrate their base. There is nothing left to do but leave, and they are heading straight to the base. Obviously, Ryo knows how to party, and that's it, having fun on the beach. Suzanne I can't believe they even bought a motorboat. When a guy comes there and she says that Ryan wants to see them, says that he seems incompetent, the leader because of whom his class will be suffer, but he replies that he will stop having fun for a couple of 100 points. Suzanne says that it was a mistake to come here, and RN is not happy with her words. She asks him about Ibuki, and he replies that she was disobedient, so he gave her a good beating, went away for years, and kicked out. Ryan proudly declares that he spent all of them points on the first day, so even if Ibuki would have to leave, they would have done nothing lost. Suzanne, outraged by his image thoughts, and tells Katie that it's time for them to come back, but RN says she can come here anytime if you want have fun with a real man when they are coming back. Susan says that classroom activities will benefit them, and asks how they are getting ready. Hold out for a whole week. KTA answers, which they probably didn't intend to do, stay here all week. Now that they don't have classes that you can lose, they can just pretend to be sick, can leave the island when they run out of resources, and then have fun on the ship. KTA thinks that this test is about freedom of choice and Mediterranean. One way to think about this is the night when everyone is sleeping peacefully, someone cuts the entrance to the girls' tent. A mysterious man steals the bag, and Buki-an carefully examines the things that she brought it with her the next morning. Eski and KDA wake up first and go out to the street to freshen up. KDA asks, isn't it hard for him to manage everything? Class, and he answers that he does it because he wants everyone to be happy. The day goes by without any significant events, and the next day KDA and Sokola go in search of. He asks if she minds being with him couple because rumors might start. Sokola doesn't mind because she I wish that unpleasant rumors would start to spread, and then she could force him with her meet. Soon they get to beach that was once the base of the class with, and finds it completely empty. Hanami and the class leader is there too, and they think that Yuan was a fool to leave with such a thing. Knows. Then Katsuragi asks Hanami does she know anything about Katsuragi from their class, and she replies that he is temporary replaces their class teacher because they're real cool. Ahead of Arisu, couldn't she came because of her disability. thinks that their class will not have problems because Katsuragi are smart and reliable, but their classmates will be bored with her. Explains that the Rice is a cheerful girl with high ideals and Katsuragi more conservative guy, and they are constantly the students quarrel. Later that evening, Class D is discussed as Class C refused the tests and returned to Kusid's ship. Approaches Ibuki and asks what she is going to do, and she answers that she will stay here because he doesn't want to see the ugly one. Savita considers the faces of his classmates. It is suspicious and asks Anne Buki about her true intentions. She quickly starts to quarrel and tells him that I came here not of my own free will, but hers brought here. Stupid Odniklas Nikki Sune is going to hit her, but Yo stops him, and Ibuki leaves. The girls will make the boys angry even before dawn. They behave quite aggressively, and when boys ask what happened, they answer they hope that girls and Oski were stolen last night underwear. When she was in it, she very upset, and Bite Yas tries her calm down. The girls think that it was done some of the perverts in their class, but those they blame Ibuki for everything. The girls don't believe it, and they are required not to remain in the same place with the underwear thieves. Sue calms them down and assures the girls that he will check all the guys' bags and find out is the culprit really among them. The boys are forced to line up, and then suddenly one of them starts to fuss looking into his bag. The second guy understands that something is wrong and starts search your bag, and in it turns out to be stolen underwear. The first guy panics and claims that he is not guilty and does not know how this thing works. Ended up in his bag. He runs after with the help of Katie, who says that it's hard to trust what you find proof, but he knows that the guy is not would be so careless about it. If he did this, he would offer to the first the guy shouldn't hide it but give it to Katie and run away. Yoda carelessly puts the laundry in pocket, and during the search he is not found. Isu is trying to convince the girls that the guys have nothing to do with it, but they demand search them. The first guy panics when hears this, but to prove his innocence agrees. Starts search the guys one by one, and CTA he understands that he is now finished. Allows himself to be searched without saying anything, but to my surprise, she doesn't find anything. He tells girls that all guys are innocent and lets them go, who is surprised by him by deed and asks to talk alone. Isuke asks if he stole the underwear, and KTA denies it. Believed him and took the stolen things, saying that if he will confess then he will get the least problems because he is a guy. The victim then he asked for CDU help find the real criminal and assured him that this was not a condition for him. Helped him before I owed him and promised to try. Asked him first tell him who the criminal is, wanted to protect him if it was someone from their class because he didn't want to the whole class suffered because of this incident. Although Yezu was able to stop the girls who blamed the boys, it seems that they are no longer trusted. The girls demand so that their tents would be separated and so that the woes didn't go there. The boys Tate fans say that if they want then they can move and refuse. The girls say they don't want to help their help, but the girl Isuke asks him he has no choice to help, and he agrees, but Suzanne objects. She says that even though she's everyone trusts her, he's still a boy and she doesn't want to, so that he would go to the women's room alone. She offers the territory to him. Another became and thought that except Yasuke only KDA deserves trust. Soon Isuke can Kata help. The girls move their tents alone. The girl calls her to help with something else, and where one finished work soon the Aku comes and says that the lower one needs to be stolen. The girl's underwear is unforgivable crime. She wants to know who Yota suspects because many guys they think that she did it because she did it someone else's. CTA says that he trusts her and supports her, but Sue, after that he goes to where he first saw Ibuki. I noticed that she had something in her hands rag when they found her, and he starts digging under a tree and finds something interesting. Later he returns to camp and sits alone until someone comes to him. Susan comes up. She says that it was a hard day because he did all the dirty work, and he says that she exaggerates the essence of the woman. Says that no trusts Aski because he is too good, and this is a sign of hypocrisy. Hegi then asks her to stop talking about nonsense and stop hiding that she feels bad since they arrived on Susan Island. Says that everything is fine with her. Kita Bert grabs her by the shoulder and checks her temperature. She finally admits that she was sick even before they arrived on the island, but she is getting ready endure another 2 days so that their class doesn't lost points. The next day sky suddenly covered with clouds, and despite Susan agrees to risk the rain fishing when they set out nets to catch a fish. KTA asks her how she keeps the key card. She answers that always carries it with him and hides it when it's time for the coyote to take their place. Asks her to show him the key card because that he has doubts on the first day When he saw Katsuragi with the key card, he thought that she was not real and wanted to test my intuition. After looking at the map more closely, she gives it to him look and he notices that the card, which he saw that day, was different colors. Come there at this moment the rest of the hunting party and Dumbo to just get Susan dirty to make her angry and why she is furious pushes him into the river and saves the coyote from hit on the head. Then Susan goes to the shower to wash away the dirt at night. She comes to Coyote trembling and sweating and asking to talk alone with him. She leads him deep into the forest and says that the key card was stolen when she was in the shower for the first time and everything. Coyote looks surprised but suggests not to tell anyone about this for now. Sting suspects that Buki was a thief and she was afraid of the coyote. She took the card and ran away. Susan asks he goes forward because she needs to be a little bit of a bottom to cry, but after this she sees smoke coming. She hurries back from the camp. She finds Bobos who are trying put out the fire and also suspects it Ibuki, but seeing her upset face understands that this time it is not her. June finds out that someone tried to burn them instructions and the girls start to accuse this Bose. They start to fight and even Yasu can't stop them. Suddenly it starts to rain and while eating it says that Ibuki ran away. Everyone is now sure that she was the culprit of all these incidents, but instead of finding it they solve it first. They ask to take shelter from the rain. Yasu, what should they do? He seems he was confused and continued to curse recent events and what is shaking up Yosu takes him to bring him to his senses, takes responsibility and tells everyone that you need to hide clothes and firewood from rain. Meanwhile Belle Ibuki is located where the students found her class D and Susan goes after her. She says that everyone, including herself, blames Ibuk in theft and arson, although there is no evidence of Ibuki behaving innocent. But Susan for the last time warns her to return it. What did she take? And Buki throws the bag on the ground so that Susan could check, but how? Only Susan bends down and Buki hits her. Susan shows his agility with his foe and dodges the blow and then says that Ibuki will be punished for using forces, but she replies that there is no one here and again Sujin attacks her, already weak due to illness and does not want to resist and create problems for. However, Aki is not going to give in and knock her down before show stolen key card. Susan gets up and says that if he returns the car, he will be able to take fingers and prove that Ibuki is guilty of in all the incidents. Ibuki attacks again at her and this time Susan fights her back, causing her to fall to her knees. Ibuki says she was sure it was Susan started a fire and wanted it confirmed. Susan is shocked by these words and understands that Kyoto has something to do with this involved taking advantage of the moment. Ibuki quickly knocks her out and says that she must fulfill her mission right away now until Susan loses consciousness. Then Ibuki goes to the marked one tree and notices something strange about it. In the place where she didn't pays attention to this, takes out from lands a radio transmitter and communicates with telling her boss that she got the key class D car as he asked for. The man turns out to be Katsuragi, who developed a complex plan to score high on a special test. Soon after, Susan comes to her senses under the tree and sees a chum salmon there, brought her to the safe place. When she lost consciousness, she tells him that Duki was chasing to get her back hard but couldn't. KTA says that she need to drop out of school because he knows that she can't take it anymore and promises deal with Ibuki and the stolen card. Susan doesn't want to lose more points and jeopardize your plan to get into, and Yuta asks she is like this obsessed with this. She just laughs so that her older brother would recognize her and starts crying, blaming himself for everything. She says that if she had friends she would protect the key card better, and Yuta wraps his fingers around her neck and asks if she needs allies. Now he tells her that she is not strong enough to handle it alone, that this does not mean that she must surrender. He advises Susan ask other people for help, starting with him. Then he demonstrates their skills in pacifying the disobedient. Susan knocks the girls unconscious and takes them away. He asks her to go to the teacher's tent on the beach. Yes, take her to the ship so that she provided assistance and agrees that she is eliminated from the test. After this, Kyoto returns to base, and that's it. They start discussing that Susan dropped out tests and even Buka is not there. Meanwhile, Kita tells Ka the truth about what their key car was stolen. Yo's in despair. He thinks that because of Susan's elimination and the theft key map, other classes will know about them later and they will lose a lot of points. He understands that when the results will be made public, everyone will start blaming each other friend and the class will fall apart. Yo says that he thought this test was a great chance to unite the class and strengthen the bonds that will help them move forward, but now it seems impossible. He lost all hope. But then Kita says that there is a way to fix everything next time, the day of testing. is coming to an end and teachers go to classes and ask students name the names of those they consider leaders of other classes. Hanami and leader class B decides not to name any names because they have enough points and they don't want to risk forging or getting a fine 50 points on the qualifying exam. All they clean up the trash. And Sakura asks Kyoto what does he think their rating will be, and he can only look at her underscore, who writes down the names of enemy leaders. So, after this, all classes gather for on the beach, and the teachers announce that the special exam is over, but that's all. They come up to him and say that without him the exam won't end. Everyone is in shock when find out that he stay after his the class left. The head comes up to him and thanks for the help and for being awesome, earned a lot of points, but Ruin says that now he will see something more interesting on the first day of the special Ruin exam suggested by Katsuragi. Plan Nan contract. According to the contract, Class C had to buy some goods and transfer them to Class, along with information about class leaders. Bed Katsuragi thought the deal was good, but he proof of identity was needed. Enemy leaders. Ruin convinced him that showed photos and made them sign contract. After that he beat up Ibuki and another guy and sent them to his spies in classes BD. Accordingly, and they celebrated this, is the remaining points, and the whole class C left except for two spies, Ruana and he himself hid in the forest and contacted a student from class who hated Suraji and told him about the true leader of class and even used special item to deduct points from you their class. Their plan worked when Ibuki stole Susan and Rihana's card. Katsuragi personally checked this for them. There was evidence that the leader of the class was there was someone else. That's why Katsuragi refused to accept information about them. In the last day the teacher of class C entered forest and found Ruana. He gave him a list so that he could guess the leaders of the other classes, and Yuan knew who they were. They framed Kasiri others to act in the role leaders, and he himself saw Suzanne's card. Revan thought he would take 50 each points for each class and even cancels the points they received having taken special places. He now stands proudly in front of everyone, confident that they won. This is a test. Then the teacher announces test results. In fourth place with 0 points, Class C. On third place 120 points, Class A. On second place 140 points, Class B. And on first place with 225 points, Class D. Nobody, neither the students can believe it, other classes. No students from Class D. They celebrate their victory without even knowing why did they get her. Suzanne is watching everything from their room, shocked to hear this. After that they return to the ship, and Kanjin-ji is lying, saying that he really is sick. While they quarrel, Yoda quietly leads and Suzanne runs after him asking for an explanation. What's happening? On the other hand, Arisu is a real leader. I'm glad that the results were just as she predicted. Thinks that now the Katsuragi faction will quickly lose influence and Class She will unite under her leadership. Thanks his faithful agent for this, and he ends the conversation seeing how the rest of the students attack Katsuragi and they mock him without hiding the fact that he was a traitor to the cons. That time looks at his class as a class leader B. He sits down next to her and says that second place is not bad either, but she thinks that it's still a loss. And Yuki also comes up to Ruan, apologizes for his failure, and after the bodyguard tidies him up, says they couldn't guess he is the real leader of the Class D. Class shows her the contract that he signed with Katsuragi, and his conditions consisted in the fact that he would receive 20 points from each student and class and every month if he fulfills his promise. Ruin wanted only money and not cared about winning or losing in special tests, but now when he missed the contract because of Class D plans to destroy them personally. Time in Kyoto. Kyoto shows Suzuna key card with her name on it. She asks him how this is possible, and he answers that he became the new leader Class D at the last moment. According to the rules, the leader cannot be changed without good reasons, and her illness was sufficient. The reason Katsuragi and Yoan guessed that she is the leader and they made a mistake. That's why they lost all your bonus points. Suzuna asks him if he was the one, the master, who was behind all this, and he admits it before telling how did he do it. Firstly, he found out that Ibuki was a spy, so he destroyed her camera so that she doesn't have another choice but to steal the key card in as evidence. Then he waited until Suzanne's condition will get worse and bribed Dumbo to by giving him Sakul email address so that he also put money on it. By deception made her show her car. When Edu and Buki were there for her, tried to steal it while it was take a bath. After this CTA burn instructions to create chaos in the can and give Ibuki a chance to escape Iken, and she planned to give the RNU card and met with Katsuragi. Suzanne was I am shocked to learn what a manipulator he is. Asked how he knew about the leaders. Other classes of KTA answered that in the first that day he saw Katsuragi coming out of caves with a map in his hand, but knew that he a cautious man. This led him to the idea that his lackey was real class leader. Katsuragi was just trying get rid of spies. As for class with, he knew that the Yuan was still on island because he had KTA radio transmitter found similar transmitter in Ibuki's secret place, so I realized that they are connected, and when Rian was there was no other leader could. What concerns the class in who left, they are left alone because 50 points were not worth it in order to spoil relations with them. However, since there was already a spy among them, their leader was identified anyway, and they lost 50 points themselves. Susan is shocked learning of his diabolical plan and asks he helped their class when, if he didn't intend to do, suddenly appears rest part of the class D. They are not looking for Susan. They thank her for the victory because they are told them that she had figured it out. As class leaders, Susan doesn't know how to deal with this false glory. Iki moves away from the crowd. No, Kushida joins and she says that Susan is really popular and she is her hates because Susan has no secrets. Of Kyoto says that everyone has there are secrets, so you shouldn't talk about them. This worries Kushida. Coquettishly asks if he had to choose between her and Susan, would he choose? I chose, and he answers that he would prefer the third option, is that she gets offended when she hears is, and then Kyoto gets a message from his father in which she asks him to meet her at the theater. She praises him for his excellent performance work on the test, and he asks her provide evidence that what that man asked her to exclude him. He claims that he will not do anything for her without evidence and says that she is all he knows about it and it should be sufficient proof. She stands up and says that the person who is obvious, Kyoto's father, said that one day he himself will want to leave school because it will become too great for her. He replies that this will not happen and he will not is going to do nothing that would do is special. He leaves the theater and Susan finds him again trying to catch her breath. She tells him that told her everything about how Kyoto was in her for her own purposes. She asks he is doing this did, and he replies that now they allies. Suzu blushes and goes into the deer regime, says it recognizes him as a lie, but he shouldn't think that can get closer to her. But the truth is that Kyoto does not consider her or anyone also to his allies. For him, everything just tools, and it will be used those who are useful to him and will discard those who are useless to win in life.